Okay.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody out there in podcast land. You are in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
Really happy to introduce this guy today. He has over 40 years experience dealing with meditation, spirituality as a whole, a ton of mindful living. He's done martial arts as well. And in speaking with him before the podcast, I was really happy because he's one of the very few people that I know that can finish the song when I say fly, eagles, fly. And he can also understand why I am a Gators fan. For those that don't know, a lot of people that grew up in New Jersey wind up going to the University of Florida, living in Florida and all that stuff. It made perfect sense to him. So we had an immediate bond, and he has a book coming out in May called Is God in That Bottle Cap? A Search for Truth. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome John Sambolino to the podcast. Welcome, John.
Thanks. Hi, Hamza and David. Hi.
Hi. Nice to
being
here.
Thanks for being here, John. And so, do you run into people, too, that are from New Jersey and kind of go to school down south and either stay here or go back home? What's it like in your experience?
Well, I did my last 2 years. I started out at NC State, and then I did my last 2 years of college at University of South Carolina, and there was 13 people going to school there that were in high school in New Jersey with me. So, yeah, in my high school.
Yeah, it may have been something where they just wanted to get rid of people in New Jersey, like get out of our state.
Yeah, really. Well, I guess there's not a whole lot of colleges in New Jersey, and back at the time, Princeton, not many people going to Princeton, so it wasn't in South Carolina, the colleges down south. They were just a lot easier to get into, and people just like going down there.
Absolutely, especially this time of year. It was 70-plus today.
Oh, nice.
And you're back in New Jersey, is that correct?
I'm in New Jersey. I'm South Jersey, about 6 miles from Philadelphia.
Awesome. I went to high school at Delran High School, so yes, right across the bridge as well. And I'm assuming at that time, my brief story was growing up in New Jersey, everyone went to Penn State, and so those that didn't go to Penn State went down south, and we kind of had that linear mindset of I'm going to go to school, get a professional degree, and go into our chosen profession, and then get a gold watch. And was that your beginnings when you left New Jersey? Because it's a totally different story today, I would presume.
Well, I mean, I don't know. My thing, I just started going south and just kept going. I did my first 2 years at NC State in Raleigh, and then I did my next 2 years at University of South Carolina in Columbia, South Carolina, and I did my next 4 years at University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida. And then I stayed in Florida for a while. I've been moving around, but I've been back in New Jersey for, I guess, 24, 25 years now.
Gotcha. And so you were right, and we're going to jump ahead, and then we're going to jump back because, okay. You had gone to University of Florida for law school, is that correct?
Correct, law school, and then I went for an extra year to get a master's in law and taxation.
Okay. So were you going into to be a corporate raider, or what was your ambitions at the time?
I never wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't want to do anything except for kind of meditate, but I just had to get a job, and I thought, well, I'll be a lawyer. So I became a lawyer, and I actually didn't practice law for probably until 15 years after I graduated law school because I didn't really want to do it. I mean, I had a pizza restaurant, an antique store, and a gift shop, anything to do with practically sold commercial real estate, anything to do but be a lawyer. Until my wife was pregnant with our fourth kid and said, we are broke, you've got to get a job, you've got to be a lawyer. And that's when I started to be a lawyer.
Wow. What type of law did you practice?
100% motor vehicle accidents. So just car accidents, bus accidents, just motor vehicle accidents.
Okay.
Plaintiff.
And so where does meditation and spirituality come in? It sounds like you wanted to be a lawyer initially. You may have been wanting to please parents maybe. But your body, your mind just wouldn't let you do it?
No. I just was talking to, I used to be a clammer at the Jersey Shore growing up, and my friend and I would go clamming and go, let's be lawyers. So I go, okay, let's be lawyers. So I go to law school. He goes straight to work as a stockbroker and one of the top stockbrokers in the world making a couple $1 million a year. And I go, I'm stuck being a lawyer. You're just, so will you let me astray? But basically, work for me is just a method or a means to make money to do what I want to do. So what I really wanted to do was just hang out with my family, meditate, tai chi, qigong, travel around. And so I didn't really associate myself as being a lawyer. It was just a job. That's how I made my money. And then I just lived my life with that money.
Gotcha. And what was your introduction into the world of meditation?
Well, it goes way back. When I was a little kid, 5, 4 years old, things just didn't seem right to me. Somehow I felt like I got stuck into a body that I didn't belong in. I couldn't believe that I was actually a person, and I thought that, why wasn't I born? It sounds crazy, but I said, why wasn't I born like Jesus Christ? How could I be like a regular person and not like some super being? And I just didn't have a clue. And I always thought that things just weren't right. And then when I went to NC State, and I was a freshman in 1968, and I went to the bookstore and I bought a book on karate because I liked martial arts. And I talked about these karate masters who could see behind them and do this and do that, and talked about enlightenment. And I go, what is this enlightenment stuff? And then I got a book from Paramahansa Yogananda about the autobiography of Yogi, read that, and some Zen books. And they're all talking about enlightenment. And I go, enlightenment, that sounds fantastic. So that's what I wanted to do. And so I was going to, be a lawyer, make some money, put it away, and then go to India. And I met my wife-to-be in the early 70s when I was going to University of Florida. And she told some of my friends that I wanted to go live in a cave in India and meditate. And one of her friends came over who had been doing TM for a couple of years. She says, well, why don't you learn to meditate right now? Learn Transcendental Meditation. And that way when you go to India, you'll have a couple of years of meditation behind your belt. And it made sense to me. So I said, yeah, that sounds great. So I started to meditate when I was 24 years old in 1974.
Nice. What was the environment like in 1974? I wasn't around then, but just looking back, they just had this documentary on Netflix, Wild Wild Country, and a lot of people that we've interviewed that were around during that time, it just seems like there was a lot of grasping and openness to what wasn't currently in front of them. So they were open to TM, they were open to other modalities, and I would think you would fall into that category as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Beatles had been out a few years before because they were followers of Maharishi, and just it was, again, it was different. There wasn't a lot of spirituality going on at NC State University, and there wasn't a lot of that kind of stuff going on either at University of South Carolina, but Gainesville had it all. I mean, they had all these spiritual masters coming, and they had a local meditation thing, and I learned, Tai Chi, all kind of stuff going on. But Gainesville was at the time. At the same time, Gainesville was the drug capital of the United States. I mean, that was the place where it was happening, and those were the drug days, and it was just like a party town and people going crazy. But at the same time, there was a lot of spiritual meditation stuff available readily in Gainesville, and everybody was open to it. Well, it wasn't a big deal. You weren't that much of a weirdo if you decided you wanted to learn to meditate.
Let me ask you about that as far as Gainesville and it being a drug capital. I mean, it is a huge research institution. And on one hand, you may say, yeah, we could have any drugs we want. And then looking back, you can also say that it was a ground for research. So if we flood the students, we can kind of do some tests and see their responses to said drugs.
Well, this is how it was back in Gainesville and also at South Carolina. If I knew 100 people, maybe I knew one person didn't get high. I mean, everybody smoked pot. Everybody. It was on TV. I mean, everybody was getting high. I was getting high. I mean, it was just happening. And as far as just a step ahead with this, what happened was this: I was getting high all the time, drinking, just having a good time, but I was also meditating. And then I went on this. Transcendental Meditation came out with this thing called the Siddhi program. Siddhis are supernormal abilities, so supposedly from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras from thousands of years ago. And to go on this course, it was a long course. It was going to be about a 12-week course. It was actually a 16-week in-resident course spread out over 9 months. And to go on this course, you couldn't smoke cigarettes, which I didn't do, and you couldn't drink, and you couldn't get high. I stopped drinking. I stopped getting high. I signed up to the course. I had fantastic experiences. I was just meditating 8 hours a day for a long, long time. I came back, and I decided to never get high again because I was so much higher meditating. I was just feeling so fantastic and having such great experiences. It was better than doing drugs. I just didn't want to do drugs anymore. This is so much better. And then as far as drinking goes, a few weeks after I was done with the whole course, I said, well, I'll have a couple of beers. So I had a couple of beers, and I couldn't sleep that night, and I felt horrible the next day, and I felt horrible for 2 or 3 days. And I said, this is crazy. And 3-4 weeks go by, I had another couple beers, and the same thing. I couldn't sleep. I felt lousy. I said, that's it. I'm done drinking. So when I was, for all intents and purposes, when I was 27, I just stopped getting high and stopped drinking because I was having a much better experiences. I felt so much better normally than I did if I had anything to drink or any kind of drug. I just didn't want to do it because I just felt fantastic.
I think the other criticism is that when you're getting high and you have such an elated feeling, you tend to forget it once the high comes down, and it seems like you were able to retain what was happening when you were meditating without the additives.
Yeah, I talk about it a little bit in my book, and I say, basically it was like this. A lot of the experiences were similar to meditation, except when you're really, really high, there's confusion and disorientation. I felt great. But when I was meditating, it felt so, and even not meditating, it felt so natural, and you had total clarity, total peace of mind, and it just felt so normal and natural. It was just a much, much, much better feeling. And I just really kind of liked always being 100%, having my wits about me. And I do believe that if you really want to get on a spiritual path, that getting high all the time and drinking all the time, they just don't mix. It's better to just, if you really want to get on the path, I think those things slow you down. Maybe it take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So that's why I stopped doing all that stuff. The main reason I stopped doing it was I didn't enjoy it, and the second reason I stopped was I didn't think it was good for me.
So here in Atlanta, we are the Coca-Cola capital, and when I was looking at your book, Is God in That Bottle Cap?, I was wondering, was the impetus how we look outside of ourselves and the cap being a soda, and the other was the adult beverage? Was it the former or the latter?
Well, it was neither. I'll tell you basically what the story was. Is first of all, it gets like this. When I was a little kid growing up, I was told that God is everywhere. Okay, so if God is everywhere, does that mean He's in a bottle cap? Because if God is not in a bottle cap, then God is not everywhere. So I used to swim at South Carolina when I was selling commercial real estate down there. For lunch, I would go swimming. And one guy I would swim with was this Christian minister. And he's always saying, you got to come to church and religion. It's something that's really important for your life. And I go, well, meditation is really my religion. I meditate a lot, and I look inward. I don't need to go to church and this kind of stuff. So we're walking out to our cars one day, after swimming, and he's going in again. No, you got to come to church, this and that, this and that. And I look down. There's a bottle cap on the ground. And I go, hey, Dan, see that bottle cap on the ground? I go, is God in that bottle cap? And he gave me like a smile. I said, no, seriously, is God in that bottle cap? If God is everywhere, is in that bottle cap or just not in that bottle cap? And then I said, hey, Dan, how about the bullet that shot Kennedy? Was God in the bullet that shot Kennedy, or is He just everywhere except for the bullet that shot Kennedy and except for that bottle cap? And I said, if God is everywhere, He has to be the ultimate building block of the physical universe. And then I had a long conversation with the guy about the whole thing. And I put a chapter, that's actually my title chapter, is God in that bottle cap. And I talk about it. We talked about, so it gets down to, well, what is God? What is the bottle cap? Obviously there's no little person sitting in the bottle cap. So what is the ultimate reality? And that's kind of what the book is about.
I love it. And as a swimmer, one can't usually do 300 meters or butterflies or any fancy swimming at first. They have to first learn to hold their breath and then mature and grow, and the muscles get stronger. What was your first experiences meditating?
Well, the first time I meditated, it was fantastic. As I said, I think I was 24 years old. I meditated, and I had these sensations, which are kind of hard to describe, but it was like my body was expanding. It was like gigantic. It felt like my arm fell off. I had this peace and well-being. It was just like unbelievable. It was just like, it was overpoweringly unbelievable. And then when I was done, I just felt so fantastic. But then a strange thing, having that experience, I said, oh my God, I've had this experience a million times before. When I was a little kid, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I would have that same experience of transcending all the time. And it would happen for no reason at all, and it would go away for no reason, and it was so cool. But I never really paid attention to it, so I totally forgot about it. It was not even any part of my consciousness until I experienced it again. I go, oh my God, that's what I experienced when I was a little kid.
I love that. I love the fact that with Spirit being so gracious, that we can kind of go away probably as far as we can, or perceive as far as we can, only to come back home and experience what we experienced when we first came into this body in the first place.
Exactly. This is how my reality is for everybody. Okay, there is an ultimate reality, and that ultimate reality covers everything. You, me, a pencil, everything is the ultimate reality. And when you meditate or do any kind of spiritual practice, it doesn't create the experience. It's not creating an experience of bliss or well-being or whatever. It doesn't create anything. It just allows you to experience what's already there. That experience is what we are, and it's just covered up. We have constant thoughts. Our senses are pointing us out. All this stuff that we can't perceive it. But the meditation allows us to perceive what's always there. And this is how I explained it to a friend of mine a few years ago. We were sitting in my kitchen, and I go, Mark, see that clock on the wall? I go, do you hear it ticking? He goes, no. I go, that's because the clock doesn't tick. It makes no noise. But I said, but, a few weeks ago, I'd come down in the middle of the night to get a drink of water, and it was absolute stillness of the night. It wasn't a sound. And this clock is ticking. I go, oh, my God, this clock always ticked. I just couldn't hear it because it was just so faint. But it was there. I just had to have total silence. So I said, Mark, when did that clock start ticking? And he goes, yeah, I got it, exactly. It's always there, just weren't aware of it. So these experiences, that we don't, nothing's happening within us. We're just experiencing what's already there.
Yeah, an awareness game. Let me ask you this, John. So how long did it take you to get to a point where you could meditate for 2 to 3 hours? Because I was introduced to meditation, I don't know, in the mid-'80s, and it's been a big part of my life. But when I first learned, I couldn't, most people can hardly sit still for a few minutes, and the mind just starts wandering. And as, a lot of people will refer to it as, learning how to quiet the mind. And so it took me a while before I could get to a point where I could sit. Now I can pretty much do it as long as I want. I always, when I'm doing it, I'll go at least an hour, maybe 2, just depending on, what's going on or how I feel or whatever. But I know it's not easy when you first start. So how long did it take you to get to a point where you could do it for 2 to 3 hours or even longer?
Yeah, well, about a year ago, I did a Vipassana meditation in Delaware. Vipassana meditation is like a Buddhist kind of meditation at a Buddhist monastery place, and I just wanted to check it out. I didn't want to change my meditative practices, but I wanted to see what theirs was all about. And it was a 10-day course, and I meditated 10 hours a day for 10 days, and I had not a problem doing it. So what happened with me was this. I had my first experience of meditation. It was fantastic. And then I went home, and the deal was you meditate 20 minutes a day, twice a day. So I couldn't wait to meditate again. I couldn't wait to have those experiences again. And I meditated again, and the experiences nothing was happening. I mean, it was like horrible. I go, oh my God, I'm just sitting here, And that went on for months and months. And what was happening was I was trying to have this experience, and the trying, it wasn't happening because I was using mental effort and creating thoughts. It just didn't happen. And I came to the realization that you just can't try. You've just got to meditate, and whatever happens, happens, and just let go. And I did that, and meditation was fantastic. And there's a couple other things. I mean, I've been doing this, again, every day for 44 years. So I've got a lot of stuff that's happened to me. So then a few years later, I started to do Tai Chi practice. I started learning Tai Chi. And Tai Chi is where you relax. Tai Chi is what you see the people doing in China in the mornings. They move around in the slow, rhythmic kind of a form. And with Tai Chi, you want to relax every muscle in your body. You want to be totally, totally relaxed. So what I say is, if yoga can be referred to as kind of being stretchy like a rubber band, Tai Chi is more being like soft like a ball of cotton. So what happened with the Tai Chi is any sense can take you into the transcendence if you take it to its finest level. So a sound, a mantra, takes you to that transcendental state. And Tai Chi did it by just motion, just the slow, smooth motion. And so I was having some great experience with Tai Chi, and then I said, you know what? What if I kind of combine them? And you don't want to combine meditative practices, but in certain ways you can. So what I did was, when I started to meditate, I would sit there, and the first thing I would do would be just totally relax every muscle on my body. Just let everything go. Just relax, 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 relax. And then introduce my mantra. And within 1 second, boom, I was in the transcendence. I mean, immediately. And that's happened every day since. But to answer your question again, one thing that people have a misconception about is this. You don't meditate trying to get rid of thoughts. When you meditate and you start transcending, a byproduct of the stress release that comes out is thoughts pop up. So thoughts are a natural process of meditation. You're not trying to get rid of thoughts. You're just doing your technique. So you just let the thoughts come, go, come, go. And what happens is sometimes you'll get a chain of connected thoughts, like, well, tomorrow I've got to go to a party, I've got to bring something, I'm going to make a cake, I've got to go to the store, buy flour, get a candle. That's connected thoughts. As soon as you realize you have those thoughts, you just gently go back to your mantra, if you're doing a mantra, and just let the thoughts go. And the thoughts go away on their own, but you're not trying to get rid of thoughts, because and I talk about this in great depth in my book, trying to get rid of thoughts has just the opposite effect. It creates more thoughts. So all you're doing is this. You're just letting go and let whatever happens, happens. And I explain it like this. Imagine you guys that you were a duck, okay? So you're a duck, and you like rainy weather, you like hot weather, you like snowy weather, you like it when it's cold. No matter what it's doing, you're a duck. You love everything. So if you're a duck and I was to say, hey, Hamza, how's the weather? You're going to say, perfect. Man, the weather's perfect, because you like all kind of weather. That's how you want to view your meditation. No matter what happens, your meditation's perfect, because whatever is happening is what's supposed to be happening.
Great answer. Have you ever heard of the term bed, bath, or bus?
No.
Okay. So in this theory with bed, bath, or bus is when you are not in meditation, but you are close to being in Zen because you don't have that monkey mind going on. The bed is when you first wake up or right before you go to bed. The bath is when you're taking a shower. And a bus is transportation, so when you have highway hypnosis. And so I was just wondering where you're reaching these peaks while meditating, if you're able to achieve something similar when you weren't meditating.
Oh, absolutely. That's when I say, I was having great experiences meditating, that's why I stopped getting high. I wasn't having those experiences just through meditation. I was having them all the time, and having them so often that I forgot that it was even happening. So the experience, what I would say would be this: it's. I mean, I've had some unbelievable experiences, but it's kind of like that. Your consciousness, my consciousness would spread out in every direction like an explosion, and every single thing is inside of me. Everything's separate, but it's inside of me at the same time. Separate, but inside of me. It was like this one consciousness. And my consciousness, so what I associated myself to be was not the body and mind, the thoughts. I was associating myself with this consciousness. It was attached to this body. The body was part of it, but it was just this consciousness. And this was starting to happen all the time. I mean, I'd be driving my car down the street, and next thing you know, I'm driving through myself, or I'm sitting around, people are talking, I'm sitting there in a moment of silence, and boom, all of a sudden, I'm just like in this never land. And it was happening like all the time. So yeah, no, it happens a lot. And it happens so much you kind of forget about it. But it's a pretty incredible experience, and it's just again, that's just the natural state that we just don't normally experience. I mean, another thing I'd like to say is this: people, get to the religious aspect. You've got Christ, you got Buddha, you got Krishna, you got all these ancient masters. They're all experiencing the exact same thing. They're experiencing this one universal consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. That's what they're experiencing. And then they're talking to their followers or whatever about what they're experiencing, and people are saying it's kind of, oh, you're God, or you're this, or you're the one. No, they're just talking about this experience, and they want other people to experience the same thing. These guys didn't want people to worship them. They had this fantastic experience, and they wanted others to experience the same thing. And Christ called it, the kingdom of God that lives within. And be still and know that I'm God. I mean, and that part there, I talked to some guy today about that. The Bible says, be still and know that I am God. People think, well, Christ is saying, be still and know that Christ is God. That's not quite what's going on. I mean, so Hamza, imagine this. Imagine that you are talking to Jesus Christ, and he says, and you ask him, what's the reality? And he goes, Hamza, be still and know that you are God. And you go, what? He goes, Hamza, this is the ultimate teaching. Be still and know that you are God. And so you go back to your roommate, and they go, what did Jesus say to you? He said, well, he said, you're not going to believe it. He said, be still and know that I am God. And so now you have I am God in the Bible, but it wasn't, it was each individual person. It's the kingdom of God lives within. And when Jesus said, I and my Father are one, that's it. The Father he was referring to as this universal consciousness, and he and that consciousness were one. So there's two aspects. There's the relative aspect, where he's obviously a person walking around different from everybody else, but then there's that inner, that absolute aspect where everything is the same. So that's what's going on with the world, the universe, everything. There's two aspects. There's a relative aspect where everything is separate, different, coming, going, changing. Then there's the unchanging foundation matrix that everything rests upon, what everything actually is, and that's just pure consciousness. And you can call it pure consciousness, nature, You can call it God. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's the same thing. It's all the same thing.
I love it, and that's a great. I mean, I actually live by that. So, and we haven't met before, folks that's listening to this. So we're not throwing volleyballs on.
Yeah, some sports is connected. You get those connections going on. One of my very best friends. I have 6 really good friends, and really, really, really good friends. And the last one I met for the first time in like 1979. That's my latest. Great friend, and we were great friends within 5 seconds. You just feel that connection. Boom, there it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, do you have any tattoos?
Tattoos? No, I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah. Because the saying is, once you get, it takes 1,000,000 miles to get your first tattoo, and then it takes half a block to get your second tattoo, meaning that,
right.
It was a great experience, you loved it. And so you had that experience at 24, and that was before going to India. So did you ultimately go to India? And if you did, what was it like with that environment and through meditation and just the overall experience?
Yeah, it was great. I'm actually going to India on the 19th of February. From the 19th of February to the 8th of March, I'm going with Amrit Desai, Yogi Amrit Desai. He's actually the founder of Kripalu Yoga, and he's doing a thing up in Rishikesh, which is known as the world capital of yoga, where everything actually started. But the first time I went to India, I went with the Art of Living is an organization that teaches a thing called Sudarshan Kriya, and I was doing stuff with those guys, and they were having a big silver jubilee thing in India. So I went over to India. I guess it was, maybe it was like 10, 15 years ago. And it was great. And then I went up to Rishikesh and traveled all around. And I wanted to meditate in a cave. I had somebody meditate in a cave, all this stuff. But what I came to realize was that it's not the place, It's not the place. So when I wanted to live in a cave and meditate, I thought you had to live in a cave and meditate. That's how you become enlightened. And then when I did the TM City program, Maharishi, Mahesh Yogi, for everybody that did the City program, I was the second group to ever do it that wasn't a TM teacher, and back in 77 and 78. And we listened to all the teacher training tapes. And one thing he said was this. He said, there's no reason to go to India and live in a cave. He said, your room is your cave. And that stuck with me. Your room is your cave, wherever you is, so wherever you are. So my cave sometimes has been on an airplane. I've sat on an airplane in the middle seat with people on both sides of me, talking to each other the entire time, and I'm meditating, and I don't even hear them. It doesn't even bother me. It's just like I don't even care. Wherever I am, that's my cave. So India was great, and I would love going, but it wasn't anything different going to India than being at home. And then I went a second time with my daughter who wanted to go on an exotic trip, so I took her to India, and we went to I don't know if you guys have heard of Sri Ramana Maharshi. He's a guy that died in 1950. The guy's the real deal. He's one of the greatest Enlightened Masters of all time. And we went to his ashram, and I got to actually go into the caves where he lived for like 20 years and meditated and sat in there and meditated. And it was great. It was fantastic. But I didn't get anything different as far as an experience, and I wasn't trying to get an experience. All I wanted to do was just be in the cave where this guy was. I just wanted to be there. But I'd like to add one thing, though, which is kind of cool. A few years ago, my wife and I went to Egypt, and we got to go into the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and in the King's Chamber, in the heart of the pyramid, there was this sarcophagus, which is it's like a big stone coffin. It weighed like 3 tons, and you could go inside there. And we walked in. We thought we were alone, and this guy gets out of it from Australia, and the guy was like freaking out. He goes, "Oh my God, it's laid in this thing. You won't believe what happened. You got to check it out." And I go, "That'd be great." So he gets out, and I lie down in this thing, and all I did was just let go. I didn't try to meditate. All I did was just relax my body, lie on my back in the middle of the pyramid, and just let go. And immediately I shoot out in all directions, and I feel the same thing I felt with some of my, as far as experiential meditation. It just felt fantastic, and it was unbelievable. And it all happened just from being in that pyramid. So I think that's why that pyramid was actually built for those kind of things. And I talk about that in my book too, a lot about that. But what I also mentioned was this. When I typically meditate and have an experience like that, it feels like I am where I am. For some reason, I'm in my bedroom wherever I am. I'm just having this fantastic experience. When I was there, I felt I was in outer space, not anywhere near a pyramid, the earth, just in the middle of nowhere. I just dissolved, and it was pretty cool. And that was one of my memorable experiences, meditating in the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Egypt.
Was there a way? I mean, obviously you were in a physical location in that sarcophagus. Was there a way when you came back that you tried to recreate it, or did you feel that that was a vehicle for you to have that experience?
No, I don't try to create. I don't. That's what I've learned through years. I'm not trying to recreate anything. The ultimate reality is always there. I am the ultimate reality. I mean, I'm not living that ultimate reality, but I know that's the reality, and it's just always there. So I don't worry about it. It was just a great experience. I never tried to recreate it. It just. I think what happened was, walking, going through the pyramid. It was just you had to crouch down, all these little tunnels. It was crazy, and you just felt like this silence, this incredible silence. But when you get to the to the king's chamber, it was a different kind of silence. It was just like dead silence. And I talk about this, that the blocks that they used to make the Great Pyramid, they weighed about, I don't know, 2,000 pounds each, something like that, maybe 2.5 tons each. The blocks that they put for the king's chamber, like in the ceiling, they each weighed 80 tons. 80 tons. So this cut out every kind of vibration, every kind of noise, every kind of everything. It was just a cutoff from the rest of the universe, and that's, I think, that total cutoff, that total silence, kind of what helped create that experience.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Let me ask you about in the 80s, they had a wonderful machine called the Fax Machine, and the Fax Machine was supposed to get rid of paper, and we wound up using more paper. And today we have these little tablets in our hand and our phones, and it was supposed to make our life easier, but more people are using them every waking hour. Do you see that as a distraction for a way to not reach that quietness that you're experiencing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that I don't think it's like that. I mean, when I say it's like this, I say meditation is like taking a shower. You wake up in the morning, you take a shower, and then you go out and you live your life. You don't walk around all day going, I took a shower, I feel great, You take a shower and you forget about it. That's how I view meditation. You do your meditation, however long or whenever you do it, and then when you're done, you just live your life. You don't go around all day going, I did my meditation, I feel great. No, you just do your meditation, and then you just live your life. And all changes happen from the inside out. Now, if you want to shave your head and put on an orange robe and sandals, that's fine, whatever you want to do. But you don't need to. You just do your meditation, and then live your life. And I'm a dedicated meditator. I've got a couple things going on for me. I love meditating. I look forward to meditating every single day more than anything I do in my whole life, and it's always been that way. So I'm a very, very lucky person, and I have great experiences. So I'm just lucky. But I just do my meditation, and whatever happens, happens. Whatever happens, happens. So it's not if you're trying to act in a certain way, then you're just creating the mood. So unless you've really given something up, you just haven't given it up. So I would say, for example, if you're on the cell phone all day long. Well, if you're on your cell phone all day long and you have to make yourself get off, but you really want to be on the cell phone every second, you just say, I'm not going to do it. You're just creating a mood. You're creating a lot of stress. You want to get to the point where you don't want to be on the cell phone. It's just, if you want to do it, you haven't given it up. You have to not want to do it. And as you get more on a spiritual path, the cell phone and spirituality, they're just two separate things. You can be on a cell phone if you need to be, just whatever you need to do.
Great answer.
Yeah. But one thing about the cell phones is this. We went to this. My wife and I go to dinner once in a while, and next to us can be a whole family. It could be like a mother, a father, 4 kids, and you look over, and every single person is on the cell phone. Every single person at the table. And it's kind of like a joke. I mean, they're talking on the news that people are losing their social skills and all kind of stuff because they're just on the phone all the time, or they text somebody, instead of just calling up and talking to them. I think it's a bit crazy, but I'm older. I didn't grow up with that generation, but it's a bit crazy to me.
Yeah, I agree. So can you talk? I mean, you think you've been around a lot of places around the world. Can you talk about some of your experiences in the Himalayan Mountains?
Yeah, it was kind of cool. So when the first place I went, first of all, after I read all these books about meditation and spirituality, I always kind of wanted to hike through the Himalayas. So I thought I wanted to go to Nepal, because that's what you hear, Nepal, Kathmandu, the whole thing. And then I started doing some research, and I found out that Nepal was really crowded and it's kind of dirty, and it wasn't like the best place to go. But Bhutan, which is in the northeastern corner between India and Tibet, was a much better place to go. So I took a trip to Bhutan. And it was great. I walked 85 miles up to 17,200 feet. It was just two tourists, and then we had like I guess we had 2 cooks, 2 horsemen, 10 horses, 3 guides, and they just took us all through the Himalayas. It was just great. But I told the guides, I said, I'm really kind of into meditation and stuff, and so I really want to see these holy places. So the first place we did, we were in Paro, which is the capital of Bhutan, and it was this old monastery. It was a Buddhist monastery. Bhutan is a benevolent Buddhist kingdom, and this monastery had been there for almost 2,000 years. And I got there, and I guess the guides had told the guy, the monk, that I was a meditator, and this guy takes me into this room all by myself and says, here's this blanket. You can sit down and meditate here for a while if you want. I go, are you kidding me? So I had a meditation, and again, it was fantastic, but it wasn't any different than anything at home. But it was fantastic. And then we went to another monastery the same day. It was called the Tiger's Nest, and supposedly this Buddhist saint flew there from India on a flying tiger, thousands of years ago, and they put this monastery. It was up 2,000 feet up, or straight down on the top of this mountain. It was unbelievable. And I get there, and the guy says, "Come with me." And they go to this old building in the very back of the monastery, and there's like a 1,000-year-old lock. And the guy opens it up and takes me in. He says, "You can meditate in here." Nobody else in my group, just me. I go, "What?" And so I'm in there meditating, and I'm just going like, "Oh my God," And it was fantastic. But the fantastic part was it was just so auspicious. It was so cool to be there. But I wasn't having any different kind of experiences. But I wasn't trying to have different kind of experiences. What that whole trip did for me was you realize that your place is your place. Wherever you are is fine. Typically, if you want to meditate, you want to be in a place that's quiet, a place that's private, and a place that's clean. So if you have those things, that's perfect. But you don't have to have any of that stuff. One guy I learned to meditate with, he was in the Navy, and he meditated under the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. He said the noise was deafening, but he could meditate there. So, that's kind of the deal.
So I know you've read a lot of books here in your bio. It says you've read over 300 books. Have you ever heard of and read a book called The Masters of the Far East?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Baird T. Spalding, about a trip he had to, I think it was maybe Hamza, you can correct me, the Himalayas or Nepal, somewhere up there in the late 1800s for about 3 years.
No, I didn't read. I don't think I read that book about that guy. No.
Yeah. Okay. It's a really good book. I recommend it. Me and Hamza.
Let me write it down. What's the name of it again?
Masters of the Far East.
Spiritual Masters of the Far East.
No, just Masters of the Far East. I believe.
Masters of the Far East. Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Yeah, by Baird Spalding, volumes 1, 2, and 3. I think there's 6 volumes, but the 4, 5, and 6 were written after he had passed away. I think in the 30s or something he passed away, or the 40s, and those volumes are just some of the lectures he did on the trip and question and answers. But I think the one he wrote were volumes 1, 2, and 3.
I'll check it out. A guy that I used to read, I've read all of his books. There's this guy, Paul Bruton, and he was born, I guess, in the late 1800s. He was a journalist from England, and he called it kind of mysticism, what he called it, but he wanted to learn about the ultimate reality of what was going on. He went to Egypt, and he went to India and all these places and wrote all these books. And I've read all 11 of his books, and it was just, there's some fantastic journeys, And he did all these journeys back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and I think he died, 20, 30 years ago. But he was a follower of this guy, Sri Ramana Maharshi, who I wanted to go to his ashram in Trivanamalia, but those are kind of cool. But yeah, there's a lot of books out there. It's just fun stuff to read. It's just fun stuff to read. And like I tell people now, I don't read. I've read a lot of books, and I've read them a lot of times, and I really enjoy it. But I don't read so much anymore to get knowledge. I just kind of read because I just really like reading this kind of stuff.
Yeah, same.
It's just great stuff because you're never going to get it from a book. And it's the kind of thing that nobody can tell. In my book, I talk about the taste of the banana. Nobody can tell you what a banana tastes like. You have to actually taste it. A book will never tell you. No one can tell you. And that's the same with all this spirituality, kind of stuff. People can tell you what the experience is, but they can't tell you. But they can't give you the experience. You have to have the experience by yourself. It's just a solar inner journey to experience what's always there. It's always there. You just got to experience it for yourself. And so for I say it's like going to Hawaii. So Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna, they all lived in that place, okay? I don't live in that place, but I visited that place. So I don't live in Hawaii, but I've been to Hawaii. So I can tell you what Hawaii is like, but I don't live there. Those guys were actually living there. They lived there, that's where they live, nonstop in that space.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Abraham Hicks? Do you listen to any of that stuff?
I don't even know who that is. And the thing with me is this: I don't read much new stuff. Most of the stuff I read is like thousands of years old or hundreds of years old, or I try to read stuff that's really ancient, and I try to read stuff that's either about an enlightened master or it's by an enlightened master. Other kind of stuff I don't really read that much new stuff. Not that it's not good or bad. It's just that it just doesn't really interest me that much. So I'm reading Vestista's Yoga, and I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm reading the Nag Hammadi Gospels, the Gospels they found that were the Christian Gospels that were hidden for 1,500 years, and they discovered them back in the 1940s, I guess it was.
Yep. And the reason why I brought it up was the example you said about Hawaii. And just for your reference, there's a young lady, Esther Hicks. She channels Abraham, so she's more. Abraham comes through her as a channel, and he didn't necessarily say go to Hawaii or use that reference, but he was. What they were referencing was the fact that we came here in this body to visit Hawaii. We came to this body to experience all types of contrast, knowing that we can always go to Hawaii whenever we want. Because some people were asking, well, I just want to be in Hawaii all day, all my waking hours, and they were like, well, that wasn't really the point of incarnating this time.
Exactly. It's this stuff is so. I don't know. It's such a delicate subject matter, but it's. I mean, if wanting to be enlightened and have all these experiences is no different than wanting to have a Rolls Royce. It's just another want, and because what happens is we think we're these individual beings that were born we came to life when we were born, and when we're dead we're gone, and we're trying to gather this experience. But we are the experience. We're not experiencing something different. We are that. So to experience anything, you have to have three things. You have to have the experiencer, the thing to be experienced, and then the act of experiencing. So your finger can't experience itself. Your finger is itself. So we're trying to experience something, but it's not different from us. It is us. So you can't experience it. You can just be it. You just be it. So in the Bible, what they say was, the best way to say it is like this: when Moses sees, supposedly God in a burning bush, he says, well, who should I say you are? He says, well, I am what I am. I am. It's not I am this, I am that. I am. And that's kind of what it is. It's not you are God or you're this or you're anything. You just are it. But with our senses and our parents telling us we're people and this and that, we think we're these individual people that came to life and then we're going to die, and that's not quite the reality. The reality is we're this consciousness. But that's one level of reality. The other reality is we are these people walking around, and we do have to brush our teeth in the morning, and you can't step in front of a moving bus. They're both things happen at the same time. You can live your life, but when you have that underlying calmness and spirituality behind it, life is 1,000 times better. It's more than 1,000 times better. It's infinitely better, because now you're just kind of like everything is perfect. No matter what goes on, everything is perfect. Good, bad, indifferent, it's all perfect.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any experiences with astral travel at all?
No, not really. I don't really quite understand 100%, but I kind of always, I just feel like the experience would be that I just feel like this total consciousness with no boundaries that just goes all over the place, and that's kind of what I am. But I don't feel like I am someplace different. But I think it's kind of like this too. There's a giant spectrum of enlightenment. You can have it's like being rich. You could have $5 million and you're rich. You could have $100 million and you're rich. You could have $50 billion. There are just different levels of being rich. I think it's the same thing with enlightenment. I think I've scratched the surface. So I've had some experiences for sure that are fantastic, and that experience could be considered an experience of enlightenment. But I haven't had whatever an ultimate experience might be. I haven't had that, I don't believe. I know I haven't, because I'm just kind of scratching the surface. But I think if you had the ultimate experience, then you're talking about something you can't even think about. And you can't think about what I'm talking about either. But so God knows what those experiences are. But it doesn't make a difference, because if you are that to begin with, whether you're experienced it or not, you are that. Whether you believe it or not, you are that.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of said earlier it's kind of about, you used the clock story. You just weren't aware of it ticking. And for me, it's always kind of been an awareness game. And I look at it as a sea of awareness that has no bottom. It's just, you just keep going and whatever level you're at, but it just can just get deeper and deeper, but it's just all awareness.
Exactly. And what they say, if you get on a spiritual path, they say no matter what, and it's exactly what you're saying, is that's exactly it. And what they say is no matter what happens, just let go of it, because that's not the end. So if you're a Christian and you're meditating and you have an experience that you're sitting on Jesus' lap and he's stroking your head and feeding you grapes, that's fantastic, but let it go, because there's more there. Just whatever happens, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, at least in my experience, it's hard for some to understand, maybe if they're just kind of starting off on their journey. But I've always told them, I said, you know what, there's a lot of, masters out there and stuff, but until you truly meet one, it's hard to put people like that into words. And then, because they don't understand, maybe they're analyzing it or intellectualizing the whole experience, but it's like once you finally meet someone like that or people like that, then you're like, oh, okay, now I get what people are saying. This person truly is. He's on a whole higher level of awareness.
Yeah, I talk about that in my book. I talk about Amrit Desai, the guy I'm going to see over in India. I went to see him in Gainesville back in the 70s, and he's a long-haired Indian guy, enlightened master kind of guy, and we're in his auditorium, and there's a lot of people who are hostile. So he's asking questions, and one guy gets up to ask him his questions. It was horrible. It was like a direct attack on this guy. It was vicious. The guy was just full of hate. It was just like it was so uncomfortable. You want to get under your chair and hide. And Amrit, and I think, God, how can Amrit even deal with this guy? And he just looked at the guy, and he answered the guy with such love and kindness. It was unbelievable. It was like a mother talking to their infant child. That's the kind of love he had. It was just like, it didn't affect him at all, and just love poured out of him. And I go, oh my God. And that's what it's like. These guys aren't trying to be like this. They are like that, and nothing shakes them. Nothing shakes them.
Yeah.
Would you say, using that example from their vantage point, that when he saw that person attacking him, he may have looked at him as a younger spirit, and he was a wiser spirit, so he didn't have to go down to that level?
No, I don't think he didn't think like that. I think he was just acting according to his own nature. I think he's just, his nature was just, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of like everything is a dream, It's coming and going, and but everything is just, nothing is separate. Everything appears to be separate, but it's all the same. So things just don't seem separate. They're all the same. But on one level, when you're dealing with it, you got to deal with it. I had this enlightenment experience maybe 10 years ago, and it lasted for about 2 weeks, and it was just incredible. I'm walking around, and everything is inside of me. It was just unbelievable. And I went to a flea market, and I was talking to people, and the hardest thing for me to do was just not to burst out laughing. I just had to keep a straight face because everything was perfect. I felt it was just fantastic. But I had to kind of pretend that I was like a regular person still in this body and talking to people, but that wasn't what I was experiencing. I was experiencing something totally different. And it lasted for a couple of weeks. I thought, man, this is it. This is crazy. But it kind of gradually went away, and I came back to my normal state, which is still a good state, but it was just totally different from being in that state. That state was just something different for sure.
Yeah, that's like. So you've been a lifetime lover of or life love with martial arts. What arts have you practiced?
Well, when I was a little kid, I used to do my next door neighbor. I would do judo, and then when I went to the University of South Carolina, University of Florida, they had a judo club. So I studied judo for about a year, and it was just great. I really loved it. Then they had a karate class or karate club. I did that for a couple of years, and then I wanted to do something a little more spiritual. So that's when I discovered Tai Chi, and I started doing Tai Chi, and I've done Tai Chi every day for it'll be 42 years this year. And I used to be a Tai Chi teacher. I've taught thousands of people. I taught at University of Florida. I taught at Princeton. I've taught in hospitals, YMCAs. But then I stopped teaching because people wouldn't practice. You teach them and they don't practice, so they're not going to get. So I just stopped doing it. And then about 20-something years ago, I learned qigong. And qigong is not really a martial art. The qigong that I study is medical qigong, to be healthy, and I love that. And I'm a pretty healthy person. I almost never get sick, and I've been doing that for 20-something years. And then I also stuck in there. I did Aikido for a few years down in South Carolina. I studied with this guy, Sensei Suanaka, who was he was from Hawaii, and he was actually a live-in student with O-Sensei, the founder of Aikido, and he was one of a handful of people that was given certificates of mastery, and I was lucky enough to be in the same town as he was. I did that for a couple of years. So right now, all I do now is I do my qigong and my tai chi. I don't do it as a martial arts practice. I just do it to be healthy and just, whatever. I just enjoy doing it.
Okay. Yeah, keto, I really like the keto. I never practiced keto. I did jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu for about
that's
5
good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's effective stuff because, they say if you're going to be in a fight, you're going to end up on the ground, so that's a good thing to have, So I did all these martial arts, but, interestingly enough, I love martial arts. I love getting out there and just, mixing it up. I've never punched a person in my life except for being like in a karate class. Even as a little kid, I've never punched one person I can remember in my whole life.
Yeah. And that was always kind of my thought was, a true martial arts master is someone who will never get into a conflict, who's able to downscale conflict and just, you never get in. So if you can say that, even though you might have been practicing it, if you don't get into a conflict, then that's kind of,
Absolutely.
That's a great. Yeah,
so you can actually put out a vibe. So you can put out a vibe like, don't even think about messing with me, and people can pick up on that sometimes, and they just leave you alone. Or if there's a commotion on one side of the street, you just happen to be on the other side of the street. These conflicts they just avoid you, or you avoid them just naturally, just not part of the deal.
Yeah. The true master, the conflict doesn't come into their experience. So
no, exactly.
Happen to they'll have some tools to deal with it or de-escalate it. But yeah.
No, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about giving back, John. So were you at some point, or are you currently still teaching meditation to people in the prison system?
Yeah, I teach it. The prisons are hard. Sometimes it's hard to get in, but yeah, I teach the federal prisons. At a federal prison, we've recently been teaching these meditation techniques to the correctional officers and staff at the Delaware State Prison System, Department of Corrections. So I just actually taught a class, I guess it was either last week or the week before. It's a 3-day class, 3 hours a day. We teach them a breathing meditation. It's Sudarshan Kriya. It's through the International Association of Human Values, which is part of the Art of Living Foundation. So we just teach them this breathing meditation techniques, and they seem to really enjoy it. They get a lot less stressed out, and they come in one way, and 3 days later they go out another way. They're just more open and happy and just cheerful, and I think they get a lot out of it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that I would use the analogy of the cell phone. They're constantly active and their mind's always active, both the prisoners and the corrections officers. So how do they actually get to slow down and take time to meditate?
Yeah, well, talking about the taking time, I don't know about the correctional officers, but as far as people in general, because I had a friend of mine, she read my advanced review copy of my book, and she said, she said, boy, I love the book, but I just don't have time to meditate. She says, I work, I got 2 little kids, and I said, Katie, she says, can you please address that? I said, yeah, I'll address that, and I'll put a little part of that in my book. I said, Katie, you don't have the time not to meditate, because this is what happens. When you meditate, let's say you're going to take 40 minutes a day of your life out to meditate. So when you meditate, your mind starts to change. You become more focused, you're more productive, more creative, whatever. So now when you go to work, let's say you're working for 8 hours a day. If you're 50% more efficient for those 8 hours a day, you've just gained time because now you're getting 50% more done at work. And what happens is this, for everybody, you sit down doing whatever you're doing at a work desk, and you're thinking about that, thinking about this, worried about this, what's going to go on, all this stuff's in your head, and you're doing your work. When you start meditating, that all goes away. You're 100% focused on exactly what you're doing. You're laser focused, so you're so much more productive and creative that you're gaining time by doing that. Plus, you're going to feel a lot better, and you're going to be tons healthier. All these people that are super busy, Oprah Winfrey, Howard Stern, Clint Eastwood, all these, Alan Jones, they're all meditators. Tony Robbins, they're all meditators. They're meditating. And, I would like to say, they're not doing it for their health, but they are doing it for their health. They're doing it for their mental health, their physical health, their spiritual health. But it's getting rid of this stress and enabling them to be so much better at what they do in their work environment. So it's really, it's just so important you just make the time, and it's not time wasted for sure. You're going to pick it up by being more effective in everything that you do.
Yeah, I know someone that he meditates for an hour every day, but when he sees that any particular day that his plate is completely full, he meditates 2 hours that day.
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and everything just plays out great for him. So it's like some people say, you know you're going to be even busier this day, and you're going to meditate twice as long, but that's what he does.
Yeah, you get more. I mean, but you can see if you can get more accomplished, if you can do the work of two people because your mind is so calm and relaxed and focused, then then you're actually you're picking up sometimes, and that's the part. Because when you're flustered and going crazy at work, you're not going to be that productive. You're not going to get anything done. You're all over the place.
Yeah.
Is there a way to step back from that? Like if you use your timeline and you're meditating that hour in the day, and let's say at 2:00 something came across your desk that wasn't planned, do you take a mental time and step away for about 15 minutes to get yourself grounded again, or how do you handle?
Yeah, I don't feel pulled out like that. I mean, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, it's just like, it just doesn't. Things just don't bother me. It was just. Like for example, I was talking to one guy in this class last week, and the guy was worried about this and that and this and that and this and that. And I go, I don't know what the guy's name was, Jack. I go, Jack, let me ask you a question. This is a serious question. I'm not trying to be funny. Where do you see yourself in 500 years? And he said, what? I said, where do you see yourself in 500 years? Because 500 years is going to come and go. Where are you going to be? So I said, so you kind of get lost for the forest and the trees. So it's just kind of step back and move away from it a little bit. Another thing I like to say to people is this, the 5-year rule. People get so upset about all this crazy stuff that's so minor. So what I say is, how is this going to affect you in 5 years from now? So most of these things that are driving us crazy, not only are they not going to affect us in 5 years from now, we're not even going to remember them in 5 years from now. So if you get your leg cut off in a car accident, that's going to bother you in 5 years. But somebody cutting you off in the car and giving you the finger, you're not even going to remember that in 2 weeks, much less 5 years. So we take this stuff so seriously when it's just not that serious. Just live your life. It's all happening. It's all good. But it's not. But the thing is this: if you have the intellectual knowledge to kind of view it that way, that's great. But that's not going to work. You have to have that calm center to make it happen. So meditation is the key. Meditation enables you to have that kind of outlook on life, and you're not trying to have that outlook on life. See, the deal is not to try not to get upset. The deal is not to be upset. So it's not like you're trying not. So I'm not trying to be flustered. It's just you're not flustered.
Yeah.
Let me throw that same scenario, but kind of change some variables here, just for fun, okay? For our audience sake. So 19th February, you're going to India. You'll be back the 8th of March. You have Is God in That Bottle Cap, A Search for Truth, that's coming out in May. But something happens on May 5th, and they say, we're going to push it back into November. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's a question that's kind of a weird question because I'm self-publishing my book, so it's not a big deal. It's going to be But if it's beyond my control, it's beyond my control. It's kind of like this. This is not quite to your answer, but when I meditate, I want to make it as quiet as possible. Okay, so I put the dog in the house and so he doesn't get out. But if my dog was in my backyard barking like a madman and I was meditating, it would drive me absolutely crazy because it's my dog. I let him out. He's going crazy and everybody's going to get upset. So I have to get up. But if my neighbor's dog was barking like a madman or 20 neighbors were barking, it wouldn't bother me in the least. It's not my dog. They're barking. I don't care. It's kind of like that kind of thing. So it is what it is. So another thing you look at that is you have to accept situations and people as they are. So for you, Hamza, for David, for me, for everybody in the world, what is it that makes us upset? What is it that drives us crazy? It's always the exact same thing for every single person. We want people to act in a certain way, and when they don't, we get upset. We want the driver to be a courteous driver. They're not, and we get upset. We want our kids to study hard and do good at school. They're not. We get upset. We want everything to be a certain way, and it's not. We get upset. But if you just let things be the way they are and accept them, life is so much easier. It doesn't mean that you don't take appropriate action, but you stay calm. You're not upset, and then you do whatever has to be done. So the example I use this is what I use to the prisoners in prison. I say if I see a guy robbing my neighbor's house, I don't get mad that person's a robber. I could care less. I don't know what the situation is. I'm not going to get mad at the guy, but I'm going to pick up the phone and dial 911 so the cops can come and arrest them. But I'm not mad at the guy. Just accept. Or even like you can have a big family picnic. You've got this picnic planned for 3 months, and the day of the picnic, it's pouring rain. It's like, just coming down. You're all so upset. Well, that's the way it is. You have to accept it because not to accept it means I'm not going to accept reality. The reality is it's raining, and I'm not going to accept it. And so guess who's not sleeping at night? It's the person that can't accept the situation the way it is. They're the ones that are rolling around. Just, you've got to accept things. And then from that calm, relaxed place with a focused mind, whatever action has to be done, you're more likely to do appropriate action. You're going to respond to the situation versus react to the situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Said, experiencing something, but you don't always have to be the effect of it.
No, exactly. I mean, it's happened whatever happened. It's just you have the experience. So it's like this. You describe it like it's like this sometimes. As I talk about, I say it's like taking a piece of granite and a chisel. Something happens to somebody, and it's like they take a chisel and they put this line in this granite. They have this permanent mark, this permanent scar, and it's bothering them for a long, long time, if not ever. But as you meditate more, it's more like a line on water. You're in water, you take your finger and make a line in the water, it's there, and then it vanishes, it's gone. Water comes back in there, and it's gone. So you have the experience, but it doesn't linger. It just is there, and it's gone. It doesn't go on and on and on and on, driving you crazy. And it's not. And again, you're not trying to be like that. It's just the way you are. It's just things just don't drive you crazy.
Yeah, I guess that was my last question was, did you notice at some point that the people that used to hang around you start moving away because they find that you're nonplussed with things that used to bother everyone?
No, not really, because for my situation like this, so I used to smoke a lot of pot and everything. So what happened was that people would instead of saying, "Oh, smoke pot," they would just pass the joint around me, and then after a while they would say, "Oh, the guy go by Sam." Actually, they said, "Don't smoke any pot around Sam because he doesn't, he's meditating." And they wouldn't, and then eventually they just wouldn't do it in the same room. I would go to a different room, or they would do it, but I just wouldn't be around them. But then going to bars was so much easier. I mean, I would go to the bars, I'd be dancing, be partying, going crazy, just like I always did. The only difference was they were drinking alcohol, and I was drinking water or club soda. Everything was the same. So I don't have any problem at all being around people that are drinking. I just don't like being around people that are all drunk. But if they're not drunk, I can care less if they're drinking, So and another thing too is people see changes in you, that you don't even know you're having these changes. So when I first learned to meditate, two of my best friends, they just said, "What's going on?" I go, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" And next thing you know, they learned to meditate because they perceived some kind of change in me. I don't know what it was, but something they wanted to have, and they went out and learned to meditate.
I guess that's called being the example.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that I'd say about that is that some of the guys like in prison, I say, you can go back to your home situation because they're learning to meditate, and you can be an example for everybody. But at the same time, you have to have a certain kind of inner strength for that, because if you're a drug addict and you don't have this kind of strength, you don't want to be hanging out with a bunch of drug addicts to be a good example because they're going to draw you back into it. So you've got to have this strength that you're not going to get drawn into it. Me, it was different. I mean, I have no interest in drinking or getting high. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So it's no effort on my part for that, But yeah, you are a good example because you whatever level of awareness you have, it affects every single person around you. If somebody in the household is super calm and super relaxed, or at work, it kind of permeates the whole area, and everybody feels that. But if somebody at work, at home, is crazy and always screaming and ranting or even a nut, that affects all the people around them. I mean, it's contagious.
Absolutely. And so it's the beginning of February, and the book doesn't come out until May. So we're going to sit on our hands until it comes out. But what can our listeners do? Where can they find your book when it does come out?
Well, you can get it anywhere. I mean, it's going to be on any place online. You can ask for it at any bookstore. If you actually went to Amazon right now, if you went to the Amazon website and just Googled "Is God in that bottle cap?" it'll pop up with a picture of the book, and you can read the reviews that are all come out. I get some great reviews and some endorsements I've got. And it talks about the book, talks about me, and you can see that all. But and you can, as of next week, you can pre-order it on Kindle for Amazon. And you can pre-order it from Barnes & Nobles and also a local bookstore. But it'll be available everywhere on May 14th. Kindle, hardback, paperback, whatever.
Fantastic. Well, you have just been in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza.
And I am David.
John, it was a pleasure. I felt like this was a meditative session that we just had.
Yeah, it was great. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Let's stay in touch, man.
Okay, yeah, anytime. Give me a holler.
Thanks for your time, John.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.